Dear friends of Norway and Estonia, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome you today on this virtual business event. Norway has always been one of Estonia's most important partners. Our relations are strong because of common interests and shared values. This is where I thank everyone here for your contribution in making this relationship also economically beneficial. Today, I do not have an easy message for you. The crisis is not yet over, and there is still much uncertainty about the near future. On the other hand, crisis brings us new opportunities to find better solutions to develop our cooperation. By working together, we can recover more quickly and make progress on areas of mutual interest. We already have many excellent examples of profitable cooperation. Orkla, Reitan Group, Citybox Hotel, Biobag, and other Norwegian companies are well known in Estonia, and I see a great perspective in developing our good economic partnership. This crisis has shown us the importance of essential digital services solutions. Estonia has a great capacity to provide these services on the very high level. The challenges we faced and the opportunities we found can inspire others. Made one of the most advanced digital society in the world, Estonia has built an efficient, secure and transparent ecosystem where 99% of governmental services are online. Our experience shows that in order to raise competitiveness of our societies, the using modern technologies and digital solutions is crucial. And Estonia would be happy to share our experience with you. By joining our efforts, Norway and Estonia can contribute to a better world. I firmly believe in the power of our economic and digital cooperation. Together, we can do it. Let me assure you that we appreciate your contribution and welcome the opportunity to find new ways of cooperation in the future. I welcome your ideas and input. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Ratas. And with this, we will switch to our studio in Norway. Welcome, Mr. Lauri Bambus and Mrs. Merike Kaesveld.
Thank you, and dear ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Jüri Ratas, distinguished entrepreneurs, dear friends in Estonia and Norway. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the virtual business visit hosted by the Estonian Investment Agency. As the Estonian ambassadors to Norway, I am truly pleased to see huge interest in bilateral and regional cooperation of Norwegian and Estonian public and private sectors. Estonia and Norway are paying lots of attention to modernization of our societies and well-being of our people. We have to face together the new challenges the world has, inter alia the climate changes, environmental issues, or challenges caused by the pandemics. Together with other Nordic Baltic countries, we may consider our region as one of the most digitalized in the world. And I would proudly argue that we live in the most connected region in Europe, most probably in the whole world. Estonia cherishes a digital and cyber cooperation with all its neighbors and like-minded countries worldwide. Would it be at the Nordic Institute for Interoperability Solutions or developing and implementing the X-Road, cross-border digital services to support cross-border education, working or business activities, or just the day-to-day e-services, either bilateral, regional, or on a global scale. The current crisis has stressed the importance of digitalization as a tool to strengthen the resilience of affected states and societies. Therefore, I'm truly pleased to see close and constantly enhancing cooperation between our countries, Norway and Estonia, as well in the whole Nordic Baltic region. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the Estonian embassy in Oslo our active honorary consuls in Norway, and me personally have always great honor and pleasure to point out the long-lasting Estonian-Norwegian cooperation we have had more than 100 years. Next year, in February 2021, we will celebrate the centenary of establishing the diplomatic relations between Estonia and Norway. Last week, I had the pleasure to meet Ms. Linda Catherine Hofstad Helleland, Minister of Districts and Digitalization of Norway, and discuss our wide range of cooperation on digitalization of different spheres of life, including those we focus at the virtual visit today, namely health tech, FinTech, and clean tech. However, the list of areas where the new technologies have the utmost importance is much longer. Having this opportunity, let me continue just naming few more. Green tech and smart mobility. That we shall focus on Friday, the 11th of December, when two foreign ministers, Mr. Urmas Reinsalu and Ms. Ine Eriksen-Søreide, will open another virtual meeting between Estonia and Norway. Dear friends, you are also very much welcome to join this event online or follow the recording later. I would like to take this opportunity to assure you that the Estonian Embassy in Oslo, as well as our counterpartners at the Norwegian Embassy in Tallinn, are in your service. Although this year we have had less physical meetings, I would like to believe that next year we will have many more opportunities to enhance our mutually beneficial relations. Let's start and continue to build the new bridges of cooperation today. In these globally complicated times when the coronavirus is challenging all of us, especially in the economic sector, we should use this opportunity to seek joint solutions to improve the digital services our countries, nationals, and companies use. I'm sure that with joint efforts we will become a model region for the whole world. Thank you for your work and dedication. Dear friends, I wish you all a fruitful day, lots of success and happiness for you and your closest. Stay safe and healthy. Wishing you a joyful Christmas season and a prosperous 2021. Edu ja kordaminekuid. Tusen tack och thank you. And now I would like to give the floor to Merike, please.
Hello, my name is Merike Kaesveld, and I'm representing the Estonian Investment Agency. First of all, I would like to thank all the speakers who are taking part in today's event, and special thanks to our partner from Norway, company Explorica, and my colleagues from the Tallinn team who put a lot of effort into making this happen. The Estonian Investment Agency is a unit of Enterprise Estonia, the country's largest support institution for business and entrepreneurship. Estonia is a global leader in the highest number of startups per capita and also has the highest number of unicorns per capita. Estonian startups have raised a total of nearly 1 billion euro in the last 10 years. The increased interest of foreign investors confirms that Estonian startups are being noticed globally. We have a strong startup ecosystem and credible, transparent business environment. Based on the crowdsourced database and Estonian startup database, a total of 142.7 million euro was invested into Estonian startups during the first half of this year. In total, there have been 35 new investment deals this year. The biggest investment in the first half of 2020 was raised by Bolt, 1 million euro, followed by Veriff, 18 million euro, Pactum, 2.7 million euro, and Milrem Robotics, 2.7 million euro. We are the land of unicorns. So far, Estonia has produced 5 unicorns. No other small country has that many. They are well-known Skype, Playtech, TransferWise, Bolt, and Pipedrive, who achieved unicorn status in November 2020. Estonia has a busy supportive and open startup ecosystem with over 1,000 startups and 110 organizations, providing a wide range of services for startups. There are more than 500 events annually. The best known are a startup in Tartu, Latitude 59 in Tallinn, and Robotex in Tallinn. I believe that today will be equally interesting for both parties. Hopefully, this event will lead to many beneficial collaborations. I wish you all a productive day and Merry Christmas. Thank you. And now back to Tallinn studio.
We are now moving on with the final segment of the day, the FinTech segment. And I have the pleasure of welcoming here on stage with me Mr. Kaido Saar from FinanceEstonia. Kaido.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Kaido from FinanceEstonia. What a strange time. Nowadays, I can't see you, but you can see me. Let's talk about FinTech and Estonia. At first, a couple of words about us. What is FinanceEstonia? FinanceEstonia is a financial sector cluster organization which was established almost 10 years ago. And we are supporting sector innovation and capital availability here. And we are 100% funded by our almost 100 members. And today we are talking about FinTech mainly, but FinanceEstonia as an organization, it's not only FinTech. Actually, we have 6 working groups. Capital markets, crowdfunding, pension funds, credit providers, and private banking. And FinTech is one of the biggest working groups, so the biggest number of our members are related one or other way to FinTech. This is typical view of organizations like us, so these are our members. If to talk about Estonian banking sector, then we have to admit Estonian banking sector is highly consolidated. And this graph here is showing that the share of 5 biggest banks in Estonia, the market share looking the balance sheet, the share is 90%. But if to compare this ratio to other European countries, we see this is the highest. EU average is below 60%, and for example, Germany has even 30%. So this is maybe one fact why Estonia is different compared to other countries. And due to this fact that banking sector is highly consolidated, it has caused very good platform in society to create new FinTech companies. And if to talk about Estonia as such in FinTech landscape, not only FinTech, in startups general, then we can say that Estonia is kind of country of startups, because looking such a small population, 1.3 million, we have quite a lot startup companies. And for example, 1,085 companies we have in our startup database. And we have also 5 unicorns in Estonia, which means it's quite a good bet to Estonian startup, because there is quite high probability to achieve this status compared to other countries. On one hand, Estonia is very small. it's difficult to do business here because there is no market. Market is so small. But the other side of a medal is that it's very good place to test your business model, to test your product, because the market is small enough, but on the other side, big enough for that. And after that, it's easy to scale out from Estonia. And what we have seen here in Estonia, if you look at startups, also FinTech companies, we have seen that if the companies are founded with product, this business model is built international since the beginning. And it's important difference if to compare Estonian startups to other country startups from, let's say, Germany, UK, these bigger markets, because here in Estonia, as we have very limited size of a market on our own, we just have to do it international since the beginning. One sample, Estonian FinTech company Veriff told that their need for the customers, it's quite high, and if to get such kind of volume only in Estonia, they have to identify, which is their service. They have to identify each Estonian during breakfast, during lunchtime, during dinner. But what is this? What is the reason to do it? Actually, no reason to do it in that scale only in Estonia. Then, of course, they are providing their services since the beginning to plenty of countries, which means also very good architecture of a business solution right in the beginning. People here in Estonia, what we can say, definitely highly work-oriented. Due to the history of Estonia, we can say that here we have very widely this German Ordnung principle in use. It might be bad, it might be good, but in good sense that if doing something, they are done thoroughly. And Estonian society, I believe, is very highly tech innovation friendly. They are eager to use new solutions, they are eager to test them. And in Estonia, these companies here have international teams. So this is also important. Plus, we have convenient environment here, e-residency, which is very good to use by foreign people if running a business here. Financial Supervision Authority, as Estonia is a very small country, then it provides also a chance to have very good contacts and relations with supervisor. In comparison, in my previous working experience, I have seen that in large countries, you and your company might be just one row in the Excel, and that's it. But here, it's ensured that you are not as a row in Excel, you're a person, you're human. And of course, in Estonia, we have reasonable cost base doing a business. More specifically about the Estonian FinTech landscape, together with Tallinn University of Technology, we made research about the landscape, and it was last year. And what we see that biggest groups of companies, they are working on distributed ledger technology. deposit and lending, and banking infrastructure. They are the biggest groups in Estonia. But if to look the split of sales revenue, which of them are making the sales and how much, then we can say that distributed ledger technology, this is rather in development or pre-revenue phase, but revenue is received through deposit and lending companies and payment and banking infra. This is a short picture about the Estonian fintech landscape. And if to talk about the Estonian companies, of course, I believe everybody knows TransferWise, who is probably the most known and the biggest fintech company from Estonia. And this photo was taken in London while they went to London at first and showed out that they have nothing to hide, no hidden fees in their services. So a couple of more members of FinanceEstonia illustrating Estonian fintech landscape. Moniz, again, payment accounts, banking cards company, and which has their operations in UK. Verif, I already mentioned, company focusing on fraud prevention, identity check. I believe they might be the next unicorn in Estonia, one of the candidates. LHV, banking model, very fintech-friendly bank. Estate Guru, one sample of crowdfunding, also very popular in Estonia. We are focusing on real estate loans. Funderbeam, the stock exchange of startups. Bankish, one of model of lending and deposit system in Estonia. We have a couple of more such companies. Salv, which is gonna present their business quite soon. AML, anti-money laundering platform, helping to fight against such kind of crimes. And on my side, thank you very much. These are greetings also from Estonian Mafia. This is how we call Estonian startup community, which is conquiring the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kaido, for this very good overview of the Estonian fintech sector. As you can see, we do have a lot of very good already established companies in this sector, but also some very good up-and-coming new companies. We are now going to switch again to Norway. Joining us will be Mr. Atle Sivertsen from NCE Finance Innovation.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me? Can you raise your hand if you hear me to make sure? No? Yes, you can hear me. Okay, perfect. All right, so thanks for having me. So I represent the Norwegian FinTech cluster. And actually, I did learn a lot about FinTech in Estonia from Kalle Palling, who was presenting at the Norwegian FinTech Festival. So I think we probably have more to learn from Estonia in Norway than you guys have to learn from us. In any case, I'll show you, give you an overview of the FinTech in Norway and a few specific samples. All right, so we're a cluster organization, very much like the one you've just seen from Estonia. We're in the program from the Norwegian Research Council Siva and Innovation Norway, and basically the ecosystem in the cluster you can see in the background. From my perspective, the different companies are important, but I think the ecosystem is even more important. And the reason why these companies all join the ecosystem is because they need something from the others. So in the ecosystem, there are synergies, complements, which they're all looking for. And I'll show you a few specific cases where that is the focus. But one example you'll see on the top left hand, the established players within banking, finance, insurance. And on the right hand side, you'll see some of the innovative technology companies. We don't necessarily call them fintechs because they can certainly do more than just technology within a particular business area. But we just refer to them as technology or innovative companies. And then an important part of the cluster is academia. So a particular example is where academia has come up with some new research. They want to test it out in the real world. They typically partner up with, let's say, a bank which has an online laboratory when it comes to the online bank or the app of the bank. And let's assume they want to sell pension saving, for example. So how do you convince customers that it makes sense to save today for something you may need in 30 to 40 years? It's a difficult challenge, and some of the research coming out of academia now gives us ideas on how to do that. So that means that the banks are teaming up with academia, and then they're also partnering with the fintech side of things for their specific technologies. This could be within AI, for example, recommendation systems, kind of a new version of Amazon. Old people that bought this book also bought these. So today we use the same kind of recommendation systems to say, hey, Atle, most people in your age group save more for pension than you do. Click here if you want to sign up. That's a typical kind of three-way collaboration we see in these clusters or ecosystems. All right. So we have three focus areas, and I'll briefly give you an example from each and every one of them. So the first one is to create and share knowledge. It seems like a simple thing, but we do believe that most innovations come from new ideas. So actually teaming up with the entire ecosystem, not just the academic side, to create and share knowledge in the ecosystem is very important. We do believe that it leads to actual innovation in the second arrow. And thirdly, and potentially most importantly, to entrepreneurship, commercialization, and ideally unicorns, as mentioned before. So one specific example is in Norway, we have now established the first executive MBA in FinTech. The reason why this is important is that most of the leaders in Norway, and I do believe in most countries of the world, they didn't go to FinTech school, right? So, and they didn't even go to innovation school. Most of them have like a financial MBA, or they're engineers, or they have a legal background, which is all needed. But what's common for most of them is that they don't really have a solid theoretical platform when it comes to fintech. So we have the first group of students are examined now, and I think this is an important contribution to the ecosystem going forward. And we do hope to see many of the managers and leaders in Norway teaming up to have this to take this training. All right. Another example when it comes to specific innovation projects is this one. So in the clusters, competitors work together. So in many cases, it makes sense to do innovation on your own to create competitive advantage. But in some cases, it actually makes sense to collaborate with your competitors. And anti-money laundering was mentioned before, and also insurance fraud certainly areas where it makes sense to collaborate with your competitors. So in this specific project, we have three of Norway's and potentially the Nordics insurance company, Trygg Frende and Fremtind. They're pooling their data resources so that their machine learning algorithms focused on predicting insurance fraud gets much smarter, much sooner than they would have if they only have the local data within each company. Obviously, there's a lot of technical issues around this, but actually the most challenging is on the legal side. That's why we have Webstep and PwC with us in the project to make sure that we don't break any of the GDPR rules and also not the competition rules. But this is a typical example where the cluster and the ecosystem makes sense because each of these companies needs something from the others. So and there's complementary value in teaming up. Yeah, also just wanted to briefly mention that even the Norwegian government has done fintech projects, and specifically this one to combat some of the negative financial results of COVID-19, where they in just 3 weeks created a solution where, as a business owner, you can go online and ask for reimbursement for lost income, and then automatically this will be checked and validated that you're the actual business owner, that the amount of money that you ask for makes sense. Lots of other controls, including that the money is automatically paid to the correct account of the company and not at my account, for example. So I just wanted to take the opportunity as well, since I know Estonia has done a lot in the public sector, that actually fintech is also done by some of the established and quite serious players in this society. All right. And finally, I wanted to give you a small sample of some of the Norwegian fintechs, like we saw before from Estonia. So the first one is Signicat. They provide digital ID and digital signatures, and their main focus is to help other countries, like for example Germany, to digitalize all their customer journeys. The same goes for Vipps. It's an electronic wallet. It's actually owned by more than 100 banks in Norway, and are now scaling up across Europe. And the final example, Chomi, is a relatively small new startup. They're just kind of branching out into the Nordics now, and it's an automated price match engine, which will automatically give the users money back if, let's say, a particular TV, you buy it for 10,000 Norwegian, after Christmas it's on sale, you automatically get the money refunded. So it's just a small sample piece of some of the fintechs, but I think in conclusion, when you talk about fintechs, the startup community is very important, but also some of the established players like the banks and insurance companies, and even the government, I think, is doing interesting things. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Atle, for this great overview. We will actually continue from Norway, and joining us live from studio is Miss Liv Freihow from IKT-Norge.
Hi, guys. My name is Liv Freihow. I'm the Policy Director at IKT-Norge, which is the business association for the Norwegian tech industry. So we represent Norwegian and international technology companies that have offices in Norway. And our goal is always that our industry, the tech industry in Norway, has the best possible environment in which to innovate, grow, sell, and export their products and services. Over the last few years, one of the sectors that we've really focused a lot on is the fintech sector and helping to build that up here in Norway. So technology companies who want to deliver digital financial services enter into a particularly complex and very heavily regulated space. For a startup company, navigating the regulatory landscape can be very overwhelming. And if you add to that the usual business of attracting talent, getting funded, and being successful in a cutthroat competitive environment, you've pretty much summed up the work of a FinTech startup. At IKT-Norge, we recognized that this was an area where we could bring newcomers and established industry players such as banks and fintechs together. We could bring attention to the industry, both political attention, media attention, investor attention, and we could work for better regulations for these players. So we established Future Bank Forum, which is a professional network of industry players from the fintech, the banking, and the technology sectors who all share a passion for digital finance. Part of our mission has been actually just to bring people together, break down barriers between big and small players, and build trust. To discuss, to build these relationships, and to decide what we can accomplish together as an industry, and then we can compete after that. Norway has a really vibrant and fast-growing fintech sector, which you've just heard from Atle as well. And a lot of that has to do with a long-standing tradition and culture of collaboration in the financial sector in Norway. So many years ago, Norwegian banks came together and they decided to build a common infrastructure that anyone can use, such as Bank ID, which is a national digital eye scheme, which is used by everyone in Norway, Rätsep, which is a national payment system, and other commonly used infrastructures. And more recently, Norwegian banks came together and they built Vipps, which is a wildly popular instant mobile peer-to-peer payment service, which is also now moving into the business and retail space. And we anticipate an international launch of Vipps shortly. Vipps is an example of this collaborative effort. It's owned by more than 100 Norwegian banks. Several banks in Norway have also set up investment funds, and they're actively investing in fintech startups and collaborating at different levels with startup companies, everything from APIs, sharing of data, to commercial and technical partnerships. But I think for any fintech founder, the regulatory landscape of the market in which they operate is just super important. Financial regulation was, after all, for the most part, created way before anyone thought of the word fintech. And it was definitely not tailored to small startup firms with no legal departments and for services that run on digital technologies and on new business models. So realizing this, in 2017, IKT-Norge, along with others, started working to persuade the Norwegian government to establish a regulatory sandbox for fintech. This was inspired by the UK regulatory sandbox. In 2019, it was finally launched, and the first few companies have now completed the program. The Norwegian regulator, called FinanceEstonia, have now started taking applications for the second cohort. And I would recommend any and all fintechs in Norway, whether it's a Norwegian company or an Estonian firm, to get in touch with the regulator and see what they can do for you. So the Norwegian regulator's focus is on preserving a safe, secure industry of financial services in Norway and making sure that all customers and their money are never put at risk. So in that way, they're conservative. But they're also very open to the new players out there, and they want to engage with and understand the needs of the next generation of financial services. Another regulator that you might want to get in touch with as soon as possible is the Data Protection Authority here in Norway. Finance is really all about data, and it's data that belongs to someone. GDPR adds another layer of complexity to finance and to fintech, but it also provides important protection, and it wipes away doubt as to who owns your data. The Norwegian Data Protection Agency has just, and I literally mean just the past couple of weeks, launched their own regulatory sandbox, which will have a strong focus on artificial intelligence. And the FinTech sandbox and the data protection sandbox are closely collaborating. So this sort of brewing culture of sandboxing is giving the Norwegian FinTech space a new and very unique advantage. Also, in other ways, Norwegian government is dipping their feet into the space of digital finance. The Norwegian Central Bank is currently working on a proposal for a central bank digital currency. And they're doing this in very close dialogue with the industry. So they're discussing with fintechs, with established financial institutions, with organizations such as my own, to clearly understand all the benefits and all the risks involved in such a project should it be launched, and how it might affect the financial system as a whole. And I would say that having a government that's really actively engaging in and just being proactive to new technology is a clear bonus. And it lowers many of the barriers that you have when launching a generation of new financial technology companies out there. So if you do decide to pursue Norway as a fintech founder or an established fintech company, I wish you a very warm welcome and good luck. And if and when you get here, make sure to look us up at IKT-Norge. We'll be very happy to help you out. Thanks so much for your time, and I think we'll go back to Estonia.
Thank you very much, Liv. Indeed, we are coming back to Estonia and moving on to the company segment. We will hear from 3 different Estonian fintech companies, and we will start with Mr. Andreas Kotsjuba from Fiizy. Andreas.
Thank you. So I'm here to talk about Fiizy, who Fiizy is and what we do. So Fiizy's business is that we are a digital lending marketplace where we enable digital businesses to provide multiple financing options to their end users. And so what is the background of Fiizy, or how we started? So we understood that consumers don't wake up in the morning that they want to have a loan or they want to have some financing. They have some needs, they have some dreams, and they want to fulfill these. And the banking products are just there to support this. So this is the base assumption, but there's a very big inefficiency. So consumers, on one end, they want to use their products in one place, but the financing options are somewhere else. So usually in the bank web pages, in the banking apps, but these are not there where the consumers need them. So this is the inefficiency what we saw and what we wanted to solve in a way that we enable digital businesses with a single integration access all the financing options on the market, so the consumers actually have a suitable lending option where and when they need it. So this is how Fiizy started and how our white label business actually, how we launched this. Our first market was Spain, where we launched our white label product in 2015. And in 2017, we decided to expand to Poland and Mexico. And just some facts about Fiizy, that when we decided to go to Poland, it took us 2 months actually to get to the market and 5 months from that moment to actually become net profitable. For Mexico, it was 3 months to get to the market and 7 months to actually become net profitable. Currently, we are working hard to actually get to Brazil, and after that, new markets will follow. About Fiizy's product, we currently work with over 100 different financial institutions who are providing digital banking products. These over 100 financial institutions can distribute their consumer lending products to consumers through our network of over 150 retail partners. So we do the matchmaking and the understanding and profiling of the customers. From the financial side, if we look from the 2015 to 19, our average year-over-year growth in terms of revenue and gross profit was actually between 180 and 190%. So we have grown very rapidly, but not just growing, but really had a strong focus on the business model and the revenue and the profitability side as well. Last year, our revenue was $15 million. So just before we jump deeper into the Fiizy's numbers and our business, just to explain a bit what is the embedded finance we are looking at. So we envision the banking and the embedded finance to be in different layers. The first layers, the consumers and the retailers, are actually the parts where the consumer is actually interacting with the retailer when they have a need or they have a dream. For example, I want to go buy a car. I'm looking for a new home. Our role is the red and the green box in these layers. We help firstly to integrate the financing products to the places where the consumers need them, and from the second side, we help to understand who that customer is by understanding their income, their expenses, their employment-related information, and so forth. So actually, we bring the financial products to the places where the consumers are, and we help the financial institutions to actually do a real-time decisioning based on the data and the profile we build for them. We believe that this is a very high growth market and high growth opportunity. Some experts on the market say that within the next 5 years, the market will grow around 60% within that period. And by 2030, it's estimated to be over $7 trillion industry. So it's definitely a place where a lot is happening, and there's a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of competition. So just to let's go a bit deeper at what Fiizy actually does. So from one side, we have over 100 different financial partners with whom we have integrations and who are providing their financial products or their financing products to the end consumers. From the other side, we are providing a single, simple API for the retail partners to connect with us so they can access all the financial products, what's on the market. So when the consumer comes to the retail partner, is it an e-commerce shop? Is it a marketplace for homes or some products? Is it a personal finance management tool? They can already see in the retail partner's product that they can buy something they can finance their purchase. The customer will fulfill our proprietary onboarding flow where we collect some basic information on the customer and collect a lot of different data points from external sources to understand who is that customer and really truly understand what is their risk profile. Once we have done this, we will distribute this to our financial institutions with whom we work with, and they provide us back a real-time offer. In the end, the goal is that consumer gets the need or dream what they have. The retail partner can increase their sale because there's less abandonment of the shopping carts or orders because more customers are actually converting to sales, and the financial institution gets a new customer. In the end, Fiizy earns a transaction fee based on the products or the financing products what they help to distribute. And why do we think? What are our strengths to succeed in this business? First is our scale. We can definitely. As our volumes are high, we can actually work with many financial institutions and retailers who have high expectations towards the volumes and approval rates. Also, we can access a lot of data sources, data products, what's only available if you have high volumes and a lot of partnerships. The second important strength is that we have a proven track record in actually entering into the market, as I explained about the Mexico and the Polish market, but also to grow to be one of the leading players on the markets where we currently are. So this is the know-how and the secret sauce we will also use to expand to Brazil and further markets. The third important ingredient in our story to be and to become even more successful is that we have a unified onboarding and a loan application funnel dependent of how developed or underdeveloped our partners' core technologies. So essentially, are you more advanced or less advanced technically, we can enable you to the same way to rely on our onboarding, rely on the data we collect, rely on the profiling we do in order to provide a loan to the end consumers in real time. This brings to the fourth point that regardless of what is the technical legacy of our partners, or what is the platform our partners are using, we enable to everyone to integrate with our product, with our platform. So it's a very agnostic to any specific needs or requirements technically. We have also shown that the partners with whom we have worked with in the retail side, but also in the financial, with the financial institutions, we have proved that these partnerships have lasted for years and years. So this is also, this demonstrates how we have been able to build value to our partners on an ongoing basis. So this is not just short-term partnerships, these are long-term partnerships. And last but not least, that we have shown that we have been able to do our business profitably. We are bootstrapped, profitable from day one, and we, even though we have been able to keep the profitability, we have been growing significantly year over year. So this is what Fiizy is currently, and I believe that there's a lot of interesting journeys ahead within the next years, and a lot of battles to tackle. So thank you for this, and feel free to contact if you have any questions or you want to discuss anything further. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. It's very, very interesting to see and hear how your solution connects the different players and the stakeholders in the whole segment. So definitely very interesting product that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we are moving forward to our next Estonian company. Joining me here on stage is Mr. Kristjan Novitskiy, representing the company EveryPay.
Hey Norge, I'm Kristjan, I'm the co-founder of EveryPay, and we've been empowering acquirers, mainly banks, since 2015. So just what is EveryPay? So EveryPay, in essence, we are a software company, and we are working in symbiosis basically with banks. And at the moment, we are empowering the e-commerce for Swedbank, SEB, and LHV Bank in the Baltics and the UK. So what is actually our product? So our aim is to be the #1 payment gateway platform provider for acquirers globally. So, and actually, we seem to be somewhat, already on the way or achieving it, as we were the winner of the best cloud-based payment solution in the world in 2020 by PayTech Awards. So it's like our aim is to make every bank as agile, as innovative, and able to compete in the e-commerce sector with big names like Stripe, Adyen, Checkout, you name it. And it's actually quite a significant problem for the banks. And if we kind of imagine the traditional situation where somebody establishes a company and really wants to go and do some business on e-commerce, what they do, like one of the first things is they go to a bank and open a bank account. And if we imagine a situation where banks would be for them one-stop shop to offer them all the kind of functionality and all the new modern payment methods that they get from the big branded names, and potentially for even a lot better price, because bank has quite a wide holistic view of the customers or the merchants' kind of circumstances in general. And obviously, the COVID has kind of put us in a place where the online e-commerce is booming significantly. So in essence, we help the banks to beat the big payment service providers. If we talk about kind of a little bit about the background of EveryPay, then we've been growing quite significantly over the last few years, especially over the last few quarters as well. We had a little bit of drop down in the second quarter of this year, mainly because a few of our traditional businesses dropped out, like holiday, travel companies, etc. But we made a quite big jump back in Q3, and actually we are processing, in November, we processed almost 40 million in just 1 month. So Q4 2020 will be completely off the scale, doubling the result of the previous quarter. I'm confident to say that in some way, in one way or another, quite seamlessly and invisibly, in Estonia, 70% of all e-commerce transactions domestically go through EveryPay platform in one way or the other. Most of the consumers never notice it. They just are using payment service on an e-shop or in an app or when checking out, even on point of sale places. or they think that they're using a service by Swedbank. Even if a merchant calls, for example, to their hotline, e-commerce hotline, there's a person in EveryPay office who's picking it up in Latvian, Lithuanian, or Estonian language. And we are at the moment having about 50% market share in the Baltic states combined in this area, and it's growing very, very rapidly. I would say that we have now more than like 1,800, potentially like 2,000 different kind of customers or different kind of businesses that are using us to kind of process their payments. And we're expecting 1.5 million euros in revenue, which for such like a small software company is pretty significant. Was actually the opportunity? The opportunity is in the fact that there is a lot of innovation going on in the payments sector. So payments are moving online to the wrist, etc., like to the apps, like payments are getting seamless. And it's not the core business for the banks. Banks want to kind of provide saving, payments, investment tools. So they're kind of missing out on the e-commerce. So instead of like investing heavily or trying to develop their e-commerce section, it's easier for them to hire a company which is professional and well established in that segment, and then use them for their e-commerce, any kind of e-commerce related functions. The trends are that the payments are getting seamless. There's more and more subscription-based payments, recurring payments, payments within apps, etc., etc. And in some way or another, like all are relying on like two fundamental kind of platforms. Either they are made from debit or credit cards or open banking bank link systems. And this is where we are very strong at. We are, as I said, like having a quite like unprecedented market share already in the Baltics, where majority of the payments go through our platforms, and all of the leading banks are actually operating with us. We see a lot of potential with LHV in the UK, but actually we are trying to now heavily in the next few years get out of this market, and Scandinavia seems to be kind of making a lot of sense to us, because we already have relationship with Swedish banks, but also traditionally there has been a lot of trading between the Baltic countries and Scandinavian countries, as well as we know the post-Soviet markets quite well. But actually our platform is a fit for any bank that's looking to boost their e-commerce business. So our aim basically for next year is definitely to have at least 2 more banks on board. We have several pending in actually different markets and different areas, but we could always bring on board more. And we really want to, like, there's a saying, having been spent a lot of time in the UK, that Estonians are often too honest to be polite in comparison to the British being too polite to be honest. So we're not very good at sales. We only promise what we can deliver. Hence, like Estonians, we are not very aggressive on the sales side, but we want to improve that to really get out of the market where we have results to show. We wouldn't say that we are definitely looking for an investment per se, but it would be helping us to boost the speed and really get more widespread sales team on board. We have a platform which is ready to take over the world, which is proven, trusted in the region where we operate, and I think there's a lot of potential. And we have even seen that it's a good fit for the banks that have already their own e-commerce branches or kind of solutions available. We take off a lot of overheads from them, and at the end of the day, they save on cost and they can offer a more flexible and better product for the customers. We talk a little bit about the team. We have professionals from banking, from technology, from data science on board, and we are operating out of our Tallinn and Tartu offices. So without any further ado, you have my contact details if you have any further questions, and we have a Q&A session to follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristjan. I must admit those are some very impressive growth numbers indeed.
Thank you.
And with this, we are moving forward to our next guest, and I would like to welcome on stage with me Mr. Taavi Tamkivi from Salv. Taavi.
Thank you, and hello everyone. Happy to be here. So I'm going to talk about my own company, which I co-founded a couple of years ago, which is called Salv, and explain you what we are doing as a company and as a team. So we founded a bit more than 2 years ago, and we have raised some external funding, a bit more than 3 million euros. And our team currently is about 25 people with a strong background from Skype and TransferWise and Pipedrive. Several, like all of them are actually Estonian unicorns, as they say. What is my own experience? Like I was working as an anti-fraud expert in Skype, and there I learned how to fight fraud, payment fraud with large amounts of data. And then we moved on to TransferWise in order to fight financial crime across the world through the heavy regulatory environment. And now at Salv, me and my co-founders and the teammates are building up the company in order to help other companies in the world to beat financial crime. And why we are so well placed here in Estonia to do this anti-money laundering and anti-crime fighting from here. Obviously, I assume that you have heard about crisis, AML crisis that attacked this country, but not only this country, but countries around us a couple of years ago. So we learned a lot about how money laundering happens, and not only us as a private sector, but also government sector and regulators learned how to beat the crime. At the same time, Estonia was the safest country in terms of the AML according to Basel Index last year. So you can just imagine what is the actual situation in the rest of the countries who were not that secure officially and whose criminal cases have not come out yet. And we're well founded by the companies from UK and Germany and Estonia. So that's the beauty of the Estonian startup ecosystem here, is that a lot of really good VC investors actually want to invest in the companies over here. And our current customer base, it's about 15 clients across the Europe, from UK, from Switzerland, France, Baltics. There are some banks, some FinTech startups, some more mature FinTechs who are using our core products. What is the problem that we're resolving here? So like if you're looking at the regulations, like AML regulations across the world, the number of them is increasing rapidly. So they're like estimated to be 200,000 pages of different regulatory prescriptions, what companies like FinTechs and AML, FinTechs and banks need to do in order to be compliant. But despite of this fact, there is money laundering cases and then scandals happening still. Like only last year, like every 1 out of 4 biggest banks in the world was suffering under some kind of AML scandal. And you can see a lot of familiar names, like there is SEB and then Swedbank and Revolut and N26 and name it, which have been part of the criminal scandals. And somehow these regulations don't help banks and fintechs to stop the financial crime. And we just ask from ourselves, like what if banks and fintechs could actually build bulletproof AML systems? And that's what we're doing. Our mission is to beat financial crime in the world, to reduce it and to enable our customers to detect more of that. And where it's heading to is, like, in one hand, we're learning from compliance requirements, which are like heavy, like a lot of papers, a lot of documents, and we're learning also from the actual fraud fighting, which has become really effective, and we're bringing this fraud fighting and regulator world together into the central point that we're building now. And basically, we just want to avoid ourselves and our customers to be just another record or entry in the newspapers where something bad has happened. We just need to help them to beat financial crime and to find more of these criminal proceeds. And that's why we're building a couple of products actually to help our customers to do that on the SaaS or on-prem basis. And basically, we're focusing on 2 groups of the products. Like, one is the core platform, products that our customers can use in-house to monitor their transactions, to measure the risk of their customers, to do the classical sanction checking, but automating and controlling all of these activities really rapidly. And the second component is that we're allowing our fintech customers and banks to exchange information between each other, which is like, this in itself is super sensitive topic under the GDPR and Bank Secrecy Act requirements. So it needs a good crypto technology to do that. But in order to beat financial crime, and like criminals are working in a network, so the banks also need to work in the network, and fintechs also need to be in the same network. And that's why, like, our core platform, like, it for the end user, it looks like user interface as every other interface. There are like different views and entry records. Like you can see the customers and their transactions, and you can set up a lot of decision rules about them. You control all your data that's flowing into the system. It's transparent, it's auditable, it's easily integratable, and it sounds like a no-brainer for the modern companies today, but actually there are no other AML technology providers out there yet who could do it in the reasonable manner. So like there are loads of old school companies who are doing that in the compliant way, but it's not effective in the crime fighting phase. Why we know that we are helping our customers to beat the crime is like we're building analyst toolbox. Like our own background is data science and data analytics, and we're allowing our customers to do data analytics on the top of their own data, because like it again sounds ridiculous, but quite often companies and data analysts are not able to use their own internal tools to analyze their criminal patterns and proceeds and to build up new rules. So we're giving them toolbox where they can build up this knowledge and countermeasures. And of course, like dashboards, seeing and measuring the performance of their operations and their decisions, that's essential for every analyst also in the crime fighting space. And then by doing that, there is like we're helping our customers to reduce the number of false positives by like 10 times or 30 times, and this is like saving hugely their cost. And integration time of the SaaS product is definitely much faster than any on-prem. So it's like instead of like a couple of months, we allow our customers to do integration in a couple of days actually. And the other part of the product is data exchange, information exchange for our customers. And what it does that banks don't talk to each other too well, or if they do, then they're sharing our data, like us as a customers' privacy data in unsecure way through the SWIFT protocol or through the phone calls or emails, which is not compliant at all actually. But they do that because they need to fight crime with this common knowledge. And what we are helping to do is like we're providing them alternative product, which is like intelligent information sharing platform, which allows banks to connect and fintechs to connect with the platform and exchange AML data with each other in the compliant and transparent and scalable way. And it's like it has to be auditable, it has to be legally compliant, it has to be secured, structured, and so on. And that's why we are running a process here in Estonia. It's a small project with 4 banks. Actually, these 4 banks are covering about 90% of the local market. And as like every rapid startup, we have launched this program or project in the phases. Like we passed successfully the validation phase. Banks are ready to use it, they want to use it. Now we're in the middle of defining the exact use cases, exact MVP of the product. And in coming spring, we will launch this product for the market so they can start using it actively on real time. And again, like for end user, it looks like a messenger or information exchange platform as every other, but what's happening in the background, it's encrypted, it's secured, trackable, auditable, and so on, which helps to improve these processes a lot. And then if you're asking what is the exact information that banks and fintech should exchange, there are tens and tens of cases. Like they're sharing information about possible politicians, about fraudulent bank account numbers, IBAN numbers, about their off-boarded customers, about their suspicious activity reports, beneficiary owners, and so on and so on. So there are lots of cases why exactly this data has to be exchanged with the parties. And basically, we're looking for other countries like Estonia who are innovative and who want to help their industry to beat financial crime to join this program, or to launch this separate sub-project in your country. It can be quite easily kicked off over there to measure the success of your crime fighting and to help this to become into next level. So that was the short overview of the things that we're doing. And as every startup, we're still looking for the better and better opportunities to win the markets. First, starting with Baltics, then moving on to Scandinavia and the rest of the Europe as fast as we can. So thank you for that time and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Taavi. And with this, I would like to welcome again all the companies on stage with me to go through some of the questions and the answers. All right, guys, please take a seat. And I would actually like to begin with more or less the same question that we actually started with in the last segment when we were discussing clean tech. And the question is, so we were discussing the product market fit on a broader sense. And I would actually like to ask all of you the same question more or less. So how do you see your product fitting either the Norwegian or let's say the Scandinavian market on a larger scale? How do you see what you are doing actually benefiting and working in Scandinavia and in Norway?
I can maybe start. Thank you for asking. I see it really well.
Okay.
As we're a relatively young company, we don't have a real presence yet in Sweden and Norway and Denmark and elsewhere, like in closer Scandinavia. But at the same time, I really think that there are two main arguments why like a FinTech and RegTech companies can position themselves really well, and we can position ourselves really well over there. Like one reason is that the banking systems and technologies are still pretty advanced comparing to the rest of the world and rest of the Europe even. And like technically it is like still fairly easy to do the data integrations, to set up the common systems over the APIs, comparing to countries where the technology is not that advanced. So like that's the one thing. And the second aspect is like purely from my point of view, anti-money laundering, crime fighting, that's a super hot topic here in the whole Scandinavia. And the money that was like in the news was moving through Estonian banks. It didn't stop somewhere in the middle of the Baltic Sea. It ended up in the other Scandinavian countries and ended up in the London or wherever it is now. So we're all involved in this business as well, although it's maybe news-wise it's not very well recognized. So these are the two main arguments why I see that there is a clear market enough for the like RegTech companies at least. Not sure about your experience.
I'm happy to continue. Again, I agree that there's the same potential for in Norway, in Scandinavia, and in the other countries where we also operate and where we plan to enter. There's few key arguments. Some are the trends, and some are the kind of the things what are happening on FinTech. One thing what I truly believe is that now when PSD2 is happening, so what it changes is that the banks are now sharing a lot more information about people and about transactions of people to all the players on the market, which enables us to, every player on the market, to assess a consumer much more specifically and customize products to their needs. So one is the data availability, what didn't happen a few years ago. The second is that there's a lot more businesses and consumers moving to buy and kind of surround their life over digital businesses. So I shop, I use services online. But still, if you go to online shops, there's no or only single one financing options, which means that usually currently the statistics is that around 50% of consumers, they don't get a suitable financing option. And the consequence is that there's a lot of customers abandoning their shopping carts, for example. And the key megatrend, what is supporting this kind of the hypothesis and what also supports the Norwegian market is that I believe that people are buying less and less things right away, but the whole life is moving to a subscription model, like what Kristjan said as well, that I don't buy an iPhone for 1,000 euros, but I buy it for 50 euros per month, which everywhere kind of the banking services are there to support how to kind of become more on a subscription model. All the services, all the products are becoming more and more subscription-based. So, and I think the embedded finance and how Fiizy positions in this situation is perfect also for Norway, because like people are used to kind of moving more to flexibility there's more data to access people's data, to assess people, so more people get access to suitable and kind of competitive prices and can buy things on a monthly basis, not outright. So I think these are the two trends which really support the Norwegian market as well.
Yeah, great answer. Kristjan?
We've obviously seen a fit with Scandinavian banks already, somewhat. So we've proven then that we can do something in Baltics better for them that they could do themselves. Obviously, like if we talk about our niche, which is kind of e-commerce somewhat, not only, but e-commerce also in the sense that e-invoices and so on and so forth. Scandinavia actually is a perfect market to that because it's quite like protectionistic, and that means that like big giants like Amazon and things like that, they're not really pro that type of companies. Hence, like it has given actually over the last like this year in particular a huge boost to domestic small e-shops, e-commerce, etc. And they also want to have access to basically the best state-of-the-art payment solutions. Where the difference comes that if you're a small kind of e-commerce shop and you go to one of these big American payment processing companies, you pay them double compared to the price that your bank could offer you if they will be using our solution. So there's a huge opportunity there, definitely. The only thing with us is, and I think like Taavi can relate, is that banks are a hard sale. You know, we have like our kind of main obstacle there is that you have to have someone who's going to buy into it. Because if you talk to the mid-level management, then they want to kind of prove that they are needed there. They want to prove that actually what they're doing is good. So there's a lot of ambiguity basically around the value proposition that the bank usually kind of, have been presented internally by their own teams. So we have to kind of push that over and say that at the end of the day, you know, you could use these good people for some other good causes within the bank, but it's going to be like a win-win situation for both of us if we went that way. Also, what's very specific in e-commerce in Scandinavia, what I've noticed is that there's a lot of purchases that happen not domestically but over borders. So this was a big trend that actually was not present anywhere in the world. I don't know that specifically about Norway, but Sweden and Denmark, for example, about half of the e-commerce purchases were actually made from merchants in Germany, in UK, and so on, and then delivered. So by basically doing that, by helping the banks to offer a better proposition for the domestic e-shops, we make them more competitive, and hence like helping them to protect their like domestic economy even more.
Great answer. I would absolutely have to agree that there's definitely a very, very good fit here, and absolutely a very great opportunity to take these solutions and then launch them on a wider scale. This actually brings me to my next question. I think all of you mentioned the banks and how banks tend to be sort of these very traditional entities, let's say. When we talk about traditional banking, or for example insurance or payments or any other aspect of the financial system, so when we look at traditional banks, for example, do you see fintechs somehow changing how traditional banking works? Do you see, is there any role for a bank in a traditional sense in the next coming years, or will this be some kind of a hybrid system, for example? Or how do you see the future happening and coming in such a traditional sector as banking? Taavi?
Yeah, like I think I'm always comparing it with my experience from the telco sector, like 2003 when Skype was founded. Then all those large telecom companies, they are as large as banks or maybe even bigger than the banks. They didn't know anything about international calling, or they knew some things, like consumers knew that it's super expensive and super inconvenient and unreliable, and quality was super bad and so on. But it like kind of worked. And then Skype came into play, and they changed the whole world, or we changed the whole world. But in the beginning, like when looking from the telecoms point of view, they initially didn't know anything about Skype, just like some crazy hacking stuff. Then it was the first phase, and then the second phase was that actually they realized that some guys are doing something, but they made us just ridiculous, or like they didn't ignore it, but it was like they knew that they were there, but they were like saying that this Skype and other VoIP providers, they're like don't know what they're doing and they're stupid and like making us down basically.
The crazy Estonians.
Exactly, and and then the third phase was that okay, they realized that there is some threat which might take their market away, but they discovered it too late. They discovered it when Skype was already delivering 1/3 of international calls globally. And but they were like trying to destroy Skype and other companies like that. And the last phase, which is lasting now, is actually they are cooperating. Like telcos, they are providing really good data packages. They are selling phones. They have their own services, but like all this VoIP calling or like old school VoIP calling is actually working on their platforms really nicely, and there are some cooperation models. And similar pattern happens in the banking sector, financial sector as well. If you're thinking about like TransferWise, which was one of the first FinTech early companies, then in the beginning they were small, no one knew about them. Then at some stage, like maybe 2013, 14, 15, there was like a second phase, and now really large banks are doing cooperation with TransferWise. And the same pattern will be applied for other like financial companies and fintechs as well. So ultimately, we both, in 10 years' time, we are both here and we're both serving the same consumers, but our roles will be like nicely divided between, and there's room for everyone because the market itself is increasing in the same way like there wasn't like international calling as a volume was super low before Skype. Now it's like it's enormous, and still both parties have room. The same way like transactions, international transactions, money transactions, they were really small and really expensive for the consumers and didn't happen. But thanks to these new industries, it is happening, and then everyone is winning from that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I second to Taavi. I think that, like, if you think of what the banking is about, it's storing and exchanging value. And if you think of most of the society has their savings and deposits somewhere stored in the bank, you cannot, as a bank, it's logical that you cannot take, you can't disrupt so quickly, you can't destroy and innovate so quickly. That there's a lot. I think the role of fintechs is often to have a quick, time to market, to test new ideas, to kind of have if you fail in something, try something else, and kind of you constantly try to, you need to find new angles, and fintechs can do it much more quicker than banks. That's one thing. The second is that if you're a fintech, you don't have the technological and maybe even organizational kind of barriers to test new ideas. So again, it's a very good ground to test something, to automate things, to bring efficiency. But the fintechs can't do it alone. They need banks because they have the trust. It's a trust business. But at the other time, fintechs can do a lot of innovation. They can bring a lot of efficiency, and then kind of, again, if they exist together, I think there's, again, room for everyone. But the rhetoric, what was 5 years ago, that let's kind of beat the banks and the banks will be destroyed, I think it has been proven that it's not the case. It's really how they kind of add value to each other, and it's exactly what EveryPay does as well. That you bring the payment gateway to the banks. It's also a technical kind of advancement, or what the Salv is doing, kind of the AML advancement to the banks. It's a good way how to cooperate with the banks.
Yeah. I wouldn't be maybe that pessimistic about the fintechs challenging the banking world as such. Maybe 2 years ago, I would have said that it's very unlikely that they will be pushing out. But if I would now be, for example, in the UK starting a new business, I wouldn't even be looking at the traditional banks to open an account and do my trading. So obviously, the banks really need to be concerned about the fintechs or the challenger banks, or in our case, the PSPs, basically payment service providers. Because once they grow their customer base, it's easy for them to add products and really take over the banking functions. That's exactly what TransferWise did. At the same time, should banks fight back? Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually where we positioned our role. We're not there to compete with the banks, but we help them to fight back and really kind of maintain their position as the backbone of the financial world, basically.
Mm-hmm. So sort of like to coexist, but as a result, create better solutions, which in the end is good for the consumer. So the consumer probably will win in the end, I guess.
Exactly. Like it's as the consumers' needs are also changing and moving on, like if the commercial world is changing and the way how we travel is changing and where we stay is changing, then and how we want to spend our money and store our money is changing as well. So it's not consumers' needs, our needs are not static either. So we want to consume new things and maybe a smarter way and more effective way, but still we want to change our behavior, and that's where the financial sector has to adapt, and the best adapters are fintechs.
Exactly. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Guys, thank you again very much for coming. As we have seen and as we have discussed, there definitely are some very good opportunities and possibilities in the financial sector in Estonia as well. With this, we are actually coming closer to the end of our event today. Joining me shortly on stage will be Mr. Viljar Lubi from the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications to give his closing words, and we will come back and continue with Viljar very shortly.
I'm Viljar. I'm a business secretary for Estonia. First of all, I want to say that I hope you all are well and healthy, because this last year has been difficult for all of us. So we need to support each other, because this is the most important thing right now, both in Estonia, in Norway, and other places all around the world. We as humans, we as business people, even civil servants and government officials, we are driven by very bizarre and also quite straightforward motivations. First of all, we're social animals. So even now, we want to interact with people. We don't care that we live in isolation. We want to meet people, even over the internet. And maybe for Estonians, I don't know about Norwegians, we even like the situation, because we don't like to meet people in person. That's why I also had a great motivation to invent Skype already 17 years ago. Secondly, we are extremely determined. Determination. I think it's extremely important. And especially maybe for small nations like Estonia and Norway, because we want to prove to everyone else, despite the fact that we are small, despite the fact that we are in the far end of the world, so we still can do things. And maybe because of this COVID crisis, we want to prove it even more, because business goes on, and we see the challenges, we see the opportunities. Supply chains are shortening, nearshoring, backshoring, things like that. Regionalization is having a new lease of life. So it is very important. Thirdly, curiosity. Especially today, this webinar, I think these startups showed how we can do things differently and how everybody can have a chance. It doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are, or where you are located. So this, I think, is very important, that we are driven by these motivations. And also the topics. Health tech. Everyone understands it's extremely important. And maybe the potential is huge there, and maybe the sector has been too conservative. And we have to have this disruptive power also in this sector. For example, in Estonia, when we introduced ID card 20 years ago, nobody wanted it. Privacy and so on. But maybe you should push it even further. In Estonia, we have a huge gene bank. Maybe you should have a gene data compulsory for every resident. So government's role is just to figure it out how to make your data to be safe. So it is important, and I see a huge opportunity there. Clean tech. In Estonia and in Norway, we value the clean air, we value our untouched nature a lot. It comes without saying. So that opportunities, what we can do there, are huge. So usually anything concerning environment are perceived maybe too often as an obligation, but there is opportunity also, business opportunity. Thirdly, FinTech. FinTech for me, that the panel just ended, I think it's an interesting area. Every respective or every big enough city would like to be a financial center, especially if you're a capital city. Tallinn, Oslo, definitely want to be a financial center. But what makes us special? Size matters, or size has been a paramount criteria to become a financial center. But I think with FinTech, we already see that size doesn't matter. With FinTech, we go and disrupt,
And you don't need to have clients in 100-kilometer periphery, but you have the service that goes to client, wherever they are. If they are somewhere in the fjords of Norway, in the marshland in Estonia, or in the Sahara Desert, if you like the warmer climate. So it doesn't matter. I think, therefore, these kind of three motivations, what I said before, being social animal, being determined, and being curious, help us succeed wherever you are, or whatever we do. And I really hope that today's webinar has been successful and gave you lots of food for thought. So I end here, and I wish you also all the very best for upcoming Christmas, and definitely next year will be better, at least health-wise, I'm sure, than was this year. Good luck.
Thank you, Viljar, for summarizing the event very nicely. And like you pointed out, again, I'm repeating myself here, but we do have a lot of good opportunities for cooperation, and definitely a lot of very good opportunities both here in Estonia and in Norway. Thank you. With this, we are actually coming to the end of our event. I would like to thank again everybody who either was watching here in Estonia or in Norway, everybody who was participating, and all of the companies and participants that were here on stage with me or there in the studio in Norway. Of course, if you have any questions regarding anything about doing business in Estonia, please do get in touch with us, either with Ms. Merike Kaasveld in Norway or our agency here in Estonia.